You've heard the number. $30 billion. That's what we're told the 2026 World Cup will generate. But here's what nobody says out loud. Host cities spend billions competing for the privilege of hosting. Taxpayers foot the bill for stadiums they'll never use again. And most of that money flows to one place: FIFA. In the next 10 minutes, we're breaking down exactly where that $30 billion goes. Who pays for it? Who profits? And whether the whole thing is actually worth it. The answer may surprise you. Let's start with the headline. $30 billion. That's the projected economic impact of the 2026 World Cup across the US, Canada, and Mexico. Sounds massive, right? But here's the problem. Economic impact studies are notoriously inflated. They count money that would have been spent anyway. They double count the same dollar moving through the economy. Independent economists say the real boost could be less than half of that. And even if it were the full $30 billion, that's spread across 3 countries, 16 host cities, and 8 years of preparation. Stadiums alone cost over $3 billion. That's just to build and renovate the venues. 11 of the 16 venues are existing NFL stadiums, they just need upgrades. But even minor renovations run $50 to $200 million per stadium. 5 venues required major work. 1 brand new stadium is being built specifically for the World Cup. And here's the kicker. FIFA contributes exactly $0 to stadium construction. Every penny comes from host cities, state governments, and taxpayers. The host pays. FIFA plays. Here's where the real money goes. Infrastructure, roads, public transit, airports, hotels, power grids, water systems. Host cities spend billions preparing for the World Cup. Total infrastructure spending across 16 cities is estimated at over $15 billion. Los Angeles alone committed $14 billion just for transportation upgrades. Vancouver spent over $700 million on a new SkyTrain line. Toronto invested hundreds of millions in airport expansions. These projects do benefit cities long term, but the timing is driven by the World Cup deadline, not smart urban planning. Security is another massive hidden cost. The 2026 World Cup spans 3 countries and 16 cities spread across thousands of miles. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security designated it a Level 1 national security event, the same classification as the Super Bowl, but multiplied across an entire continent. Security costs are estimated between $300 million and $500 million. This covers federal law enforcement, counterterrorism units, cybersecurity, drone surveillance, and local police overtime. The U.S. government covers most of it. FIFA contributes around $50 million. FIFA's marketing machine is a well-oiled money printer. The 2026 global marketing budget is estimated at over $400 million. This covers worldwide ad campaigns, digital content production, social media promotion, and the massive FIFA Fan Fest experiences in every host city. But here's the brilliant part. That marketing doesn't just promote the tournament. It promotes FIFA's corporate partners. Coca-Cola, Visa, Adidas, Hyundai, they all pay billions for access. FIFA spends money to sell your attention to their sponsors. You're the product. So where does FIFA's money actually come from? The 2022 Qatar World Cup generated $7.5 billion in revenue. For 2026, FIFA projects $11 billion. 3 main sources. Broadcasting rights roughly $3 billion. Networks pay enormous fees for the right to show matches. Corporate sponsorships another $2 billion from global partners like Coca-Cola, Visa, Adidas, and Qatar Airways. And ticketing over $1 billion directly from fans. FIFA keeps almost all of this. They pay tournament operating costs, but the massive surplus flows directly into FIFA's reserves. So who walks away with the money? FIFA is technically a non-profit. In theory, all revenue goes back into football development. In practice, the picture is more complicated. FIFA's leadership receives generous compensation. Travel, hotels, bonuses, millions are spent on executives. The 211 member associations get development funding, but it's distributed unevenly. The biggest winners are the 32 qualified teams, who receive millions in prize money and preparation funds. But the host nations? They don't get a direct cut of FIFA's $11 billion. They get whatever economic impact trickles down. Being chosen as a host city sounds like a major win. Cities compete fiercely for the privilege. But it's a bad deal economically. Host cities promise FIFA everything: tax breaks, free stadium use, security coverage, transportation upgrades. In return, they get 4 to 7 matches. Each match brings 40 to 60,000 fans. Hotels fill up. Restaurants get busy. But the revenue from a few match days doesn't come close to covering the city's investment. Economists call this the host city. Premium cities consistently pay more than they gain. Here's the uncomfortable truth about World Cup economics. The bill goes mostly to taxpayers. Stadium renovations are publicly funded. Infrastructure projects are publicly funded. Security overtime is publicly funded. Tax breaks for FIFA are publicly funded. And FIFA itself pays almost zero tax on its World Cup revenue. The U.S. Congress passed a special tax exemption specifically for the 2026 World Cup, allowing FIFA to avoid taxes on billions in revenue. That means American, Canadian, and Mexican taxpayers are footing the bill while FIFA's profits fly out tax-free. You always hear about the tourism windfall. Millions of fans flooding in. Hotels packed. Restaurants overflowing. But reality tells a different story. Studies from previous World Cups show that tourism actually displaces regular visitors. People who would have visited a city for vacation simply choose to go elsewhere during the tournament. Brazil 2014 saw a 40% drop in tourist arrivals compared to the same period the year before. The fans who do come spend money, yes, but they also strain infrastructure, drive up prices, and create massive security costs. What happens to stadiums when the World Cup ends? It's the biggest question in mega-event economics. Brazil built or renovated 12 stadiums for $3.6 billion. 8 years later, most sit underused. One became a bus parking lot. Another hosts a handful of concerts per year. Several lose millions annually in maintenance costs. For 2026, the situation is better because most venues are existing NFL stadiums. But the 5 newly built or heavily renovated venues still cost hundreds of millions. The real question isn't whether they'll be used. It's whether they'll ever pay back the investment. Let's look at history. South Africa 2010 cost $4.3 billion. Brazil 2014 cost $15 billion. Russia 2018 cost $14.2 billion. Qatar 2022 cost a staggering $220 billion, though most of that was city building, not just the tournament. Each tournament promised economic transformation. None delivered what was promised. South Africa's stadiums are now white elephants. Brazil's aren't much better. Russia's are barely used due to geopolitical isolation. The pattern is unmistakable. Host nations consistently overspend and under-recover. The question is whether 2026 breaks this cycle. Qatar 2022 is the elephant in every World Cup economic conversation. $220 billion spent, 8 brand new stadiums built, 15 years of preparation. The Qatari government says the World Cup accelerated their national development plan. Critics argue most of that spending was going to happen anyway. The World Cup just became the justification. The stadiums cost around $10 billion. The rest went to a new metro system, a brand new city called Lusail, hotels, airports, and infrastructure. Qatar had the advantage of being a tiny, oil-rich nation. The US, Canada, and Mexico don't share that luxury. Let's talk about who really wins. FIFA's corporate partners. Coca-Cola has sponsored the World Cup since 1974. They pay over $200 million per World Cup cycle. In return, they get exclusive marketing rights, stadium branding, hospitality access, and exposure to billions of fans worldwide. Visa, Adidas, Hyundai, Budweiser, and Qatar Airways are all in the same elite club. For them, the World Cup is the ultimate global advertising platform. They spend billions collectively to be associated with the tournament, and they make that money back many times over through increased sales. Economists are genuinely split on the World Cup's economic value. Proponents argue the tournament creates thousands of jobs, boosts tourism, improves infrastructure, and generates massive global exposure. Critics point to peer-reviewed studies showing no measurable long-term economic benefit. One major study of host countries found no significant GDP boost. Another found that hosting actually reduces long-term GDP growth due to debt from infrastructure spending. Both sides have valid arguments, but the evidence leans toward caution. The World Cup is a party. The host always pays the catering bill. So is the 2026 World Cup worth it? It depends entirely on who you ask. FIFA certainly thinks so. They're projected to make $11 billion in profit. Corporate partners think so. They get unmatched global exposure. Players absolutely think so. It's the pinnacle of their careers. Fans think so. It's the greatest sporting event on earth. But for host cities and taxpayers, the math is less clear. If you believe optimistic economic impact studies, it's a windfall. If you look at historical evidence, it's a net loss. The honest answer is that for some, the World Cup is priceless. For most of the people paying for it, it's not. The $30 billion World Cup is a story of winners and losers. FIFA wins $11 billion in revenue, zero stadium costs, zero taxes. Corporate sponsors win unmatched global exposure that pays for itself many times over. The players and teams win prize money, glory, and the biggest stage in sports. But the host cities that compete at a loss? The taxpayers who fund stadiums they'll rarely step foot in? The small businesses squeezed by corporate sponsors? They're the ones quietly paying the bill. Next time you see a city celebrating being chosen as a World Cup host, ask yourself one question. Who's really winning here? Subscribe to WC26 Matrix for more.